there. Thanks for joining us here on News Center Maine Plus. I'm Amanda Hill. Following the death of President Jimmy Carter, we are taking a look back at his legacy. Carter, the nation's 39th president, dedicated much of his life to public service, which sometimes brought him here to Maine. But before he held the nation's highest office, he was just a boy from Georgia.
James Earl Carter Jr. was born in Plains, Georgia in 1924, the son of a spirited small-town nurse and a larger-than-life farmer who ran a country store and agricultural warehouse. Jimmy Carter learned the benefits of hard work. When he graduated from Plains High School, Carter went to a community college before joining the U.S. Naval Academy, and 2 years later he received a wartime appointment serving on Navy submarines around the world. Carter's heart was in his home state, and his love was in his hometown. In 1946, he married Rosalind Smith, a young woman who grew up just a few doors down from the Carter family. After serving in the Navy, Carter went back to Georgia and entered the world of politics. First, a victory in the state Senate, then a U.S. congressional race. He lost his first campaign for governor, but not the second time. In 1970, Carter was elected Georgia governor, and the next 4 years gave him a reputation as a new kind of Southern politician.
I say to you quite frankly that the time for racial discrimination is over.
A reputation that helped propel him into the Oval Office.
My name is Jimmy Carter, and I'm running for president.
1976, President-elect Jimmy Carter. He began with an ambitious agenda. President Carter attacked the energy crisis, fuel shortages, and rising prices. He created the Department of Energy, and in 1979 engineered the Camp David Accords, bringing peace to the Middle East, one of the greatest diplomatic achievements in U.S. history.
I was able finally to enmesh the two in a reasonable agreement that I think was very beneficial for both Israel and for Egypt.
Let us have three of us together.
Very good.
Later that year, though, the most profound crisis of Carter's presidency, when Iranian militants stormed the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, taking 52 Americans hostage.
We're using every available channel to protect the safety of the hostages and to secure their release.
The ordeal lasted 444 days, ending hours after newly elected President Ronald Reagan took the oath of office. After leaving office, Carter's dedication to public service and public good continued. Since 1989, the Carter Center has worked with 38 countries to monitor and ensure fairness in nearly 100 democratic elections. He's helped to eradicate disease, and well into his 90s, humbly helped build homes for those in need with Habitat for Humanity.
We deal with the generic term of human rights. Under that umbrella, obviously, the right of people to live in peace and the right of people to have adequate health care and to have their children survive are inseparable basic rights of a human being.
President Jimmy Carter, a global icon, a champion for justice, a dedicated public servant who never forgot his roots.
And as we heard, after his presidency, Jimmy and his wife spent much of their time working with Habitat for Humanity. They first volunteered to build or improve homes in March of 1984. President Carter even served as a member of the organization's board of directors from 84 to 87. The couple kept up their dedication until 2019, when they were both in their 90s. Delia Goncalves from our sister station in D.C. met up with people who say they will never forget the impact the Carters had on their community.
There were people I would talk to, oh, you in one of the Jimmy Carter homes. I know where you live at. I know where that is.
Hope Gibson was a 49-year-old mother of two when she joined President Jimmy Carter and his wife Rosalind in building her home. It was 1992. WUSA 9 was there to document the hundreds of volunteers who built 10 homes on Benning Road Southeast through Habitat for Humanity. Part of these first-time home buyers' down payment, their own sweat equity.
Never a handout. You put in the work.
Yes. I had friends who volunteered, but I was the main source of doing it. After all these years, I still spin around and says, actually, this is mine.
From the kitchen to the cathedral ceiling, Gibson fell in love with every inch of the home she helped build. And down the street.
I was in my 30s when we built this house. And it took all women to build this house. And we done it within about 7 days.
George Hood and his family still call this corner lot home.
I enjoyed every bit of it. The only thing I hate about it now is cutting the grass.
When you look at this, what goes through your mind? You must be really proud.
Yeah, I am proud. I'm proud of her.
With pride in her eyes, Tori came up to us and showed us this framed picture of her grandmother working alongside the Carters and the Habitat for Humanity crew. We spoke with Victoria Franklin on the phone.
His legacy is for someone to keep it going, to build affordable homes and help low-income people and people in need.
Meanwhile, back up the block,
I cried, to be honest with you, because I love him.
Gibson says she's praying for Carter, a man who was more than a president, she says. He was a servant with a loving and giving heart. Before we left, she shared this memory when she ran into President Carter years later.
He asked me, is the house still standing? And I said, you built it, so you ought to know. I said, something I need to know right now? Let me know. And we embraced.
That was Adelia Goncalves reporting from our sister station in D.C. Habitat for Humanity released a statement on the passing of President Carter. In part, the CEO of the organization says, quote, "We are grateful for the incredible impact the Carters have had on Habitat and on the families who've benefited from their shining example. The Carters put Habitat for Humanity on the map, and their legacy lives on in every family we serve around the world," end quote. One of the most controversial issues of Carter's presidency was the Iran hostage crisis. And when he needed the most help, he turned to a man from Maine. In the middle of the crisis, former President Carter needed a new Secretary of State. He called on Maine Senator Ed Muskie for the job. At the time, Muskie had run as a presidential and vice presidential candidate and lost. While some may have said those failures had tarnished his legacy, Carter didn't see it that way.
I had Ed Muskie, at the top of my list as a person of superb leadership qualities and national, even international esteem.
According to Muskie's son, Ned, the pair first met when Carter was a governor. Their friendship continued over the years, with Muskie making the shortlist for VP. While Carter ended up choosing Walter Mondale as vice president, Muskie still held a working and personal relationship with Carter. The former president supported his former Secretary of State at the opening of the Muskie Archives, a collection of Muskie's work at Bates College. His in-person attendance confirmed what Ned Muskie already knew, that Carter was a great leader and friend.
Carter came up to Bates College when the Muskie Archives were created, and that was a great, it was a great sign of friendship and respect that he did that. Carter has proven, we all know this now, to be a great man and a great human being. And I remember back then very vividly people saying to my father, despite only being a one-term president, he will go down in history very well. And I think that's a surety at this point.
Of course, that was not the only trip Carter made to Maine. In 1978, the president stayed the night in Bangor with a local family. News Center Maine's Don Kerrigan spoke with that family decades later to see how they remember his historic visit.
It's a typical, neat East Side Bangor home, except for the little bronze plaque on the door, a reminder that 45 years ago,
I don't know what their decision will be when it's recommended to me.
When President Jimmy Carter came to town, he spent the night in this house on Maple Street with the Murray family.
So the fact that he was coming to Maine at all was exciting, but to Bangor specifically and to our house was just a little mind-blowing.
Winnie Murray Higgins was 22 that February, recently married. Younger brother Buddy was 18, a freshman at Boston College. When the word came from the family, the president was coming to visit.
As I'm walking from the bus to the dorm, one of my pals yells out the window of our dorm. He opens the window, this is February, and he yelled out, I'll never forget, he yelled out, "And the President of the United States will be staying at the Murray home this weekend."
I mean, Mom was all abuzz about what she was going to feed him. That was a big pressing issue at the time.
Older brother Frank was at Catholic Seminary in Washington. Older sister Kathy was already working as a nurse in Florida, where they talked with us by Zoom 45 years later.
One, I was wicked proud that they had picked Dad. Of all the good men in Maine, that Dad was picked, and I was so happy for Dad.
She and Frank quickly got plane tickets home.
They sort of made it clear to us, you're all welcome home to be here when he gets here, but none of you can stay overnight because there's only 4 bedrooms in the house, and there's one for them, one for the president, one for his appointment secretary stayed in the house with him.
They say the house quickly became as much a headquarters as a home, with presidential staff and Secret Service.
Parked in the driveway, Dawn.
They put a Winnebago in the backyard, and they worked out of the Winnebago.
President Carter landed on a Friday and held a town hall meeting at a packed Bangor auditorium.
But I can't promise you at this point that I'll keep Loring Air Force Base open at its present full strength.
And when the speech had ended, the Murrays had company.
He greeted Mom very warmly and Dad, and also went across the street, shook hands with people.
They recall the president carrying his own bags into the house. Then they all sat down together, with the White House press pool in the next room for a photo op.
And I remember the first thing that happened after they all cleared out, he called Rosalind.
What kind of guy was he? What did he seem like?
Oh. He was really a sweet gentleman. He was so polite, so sweet. So you felt, when I first went in and went to shake his hand, he hugged me.
And instantly made you feel very comfortable.
But he was definitely very happy to come in to this humble house and sit down and have coffee and go to bed.
In the morning, the neighbors were all eager for a chance to see the president, and got it. And after a big family breakfast, they all went with the president to a morning event at Husson College. Then Carter took off, and Frank, returning to Catholic Seminary in Washington, was invited to fly with him on Air Force One.
Well, he knew I had been in the legislature, he knew I had run for Secretary of State, and but he was more interested in my decision to become a priest.
It had been a whirlwind few days. Those memories still held in the family scrapbook.
They really enjoyed it for the rest of their lives, you know, to be able to, every once in a while somebody would say, "Oh, weren't you the guy that the president stayed?"
And all of them still hold memories of Jimmy Carter himself as a president and as a person.
He has, by the things that he's engaged in and been involved with since his time in office, has really shown how a former president can really exercise so much influence and so much power in such quiet ways.
I think he was and is a good man, and that transcended his life before, which I don't know much about, during, and certainly after.
The Murray family learned that close up, and say the way Jimmy Carter has lived his life is no surprise after getting to know the man in their living room.
Dawn Kerrigan reporting there. A lot of beer lovers raise a glass to President Carter for his impact on the start of craft brewing in the U.S. In 1978, President Carter signed a bill that allowed individuals to brew for personal enjoyment. Essentially, his signature lifted a prohibition-aged law that's according to the American Home Brewers Association. Some states quickly adapted to federal legalization, while others took time to develop their own language. But after the 1978 bill was signed into law, home brewing steadily grew, setting a stage for the modern and small breweries that are open now all around the country. If you'd like to share your own tribute to former President Carter, there is a website set up for you to do so. Leaders at the Carter Center encourage anyone who'd like to send their condolences to the family to visit jimmycartertribute.org. That will take you to the official online condolence book. The family has also asked that in lieu of flowers, donations be made to the Carter Center. Thank you so much for joining us for this special on News Center Maine Plus. You can stay up to date on our latest stories and projects right here anytime.